Well, this one's taken some time to put together, but I don't know if I bribed him or what I did, but we're in the home of Gus Pantazis. Did I say that right?
You said it right.
Or Gus from Global, right?
My right last name is from Global. Gus from Global.
Yeah. I was actually at a meeting before I came here, and where are you going? I'm going to interview Gus. And Gus, I said, Gus from Global. Oh yeah, and it's a true story. It's a true story, right?
That's my surname.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for welcoming me into your home here, Gus. And,
no, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being here, Dave. I appreciate this.
Yeah, well, we've been friends a long time, and it's like I say, I feel like this interview is probably 30 years in the making anyway. But I always start off with, where are you from?
I was born in Greece.
Okay.
And I came to Canada in 1965 as a 10-year-old. People are doing the math now, trying to figure out how old I am. And we moved to Toronto. We were in Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I grew up. And I grew up at West End, Toronto. Mm-hmm. Bloor and Ossington, Bloor and College area. And,
okay. What kind of area was that?
Ossington and College. It was an ethnic area, a nice area.
Yeah.
I mean, you grow up in the 70s, you go to school, you go to there was gyms and there was boxing. There was the boxing legend, of course, George Chuvalo, which I personally know. Yeah. I have pictures with him
nice.
And I. Matter of fact, years ago, he was at the Peter Henderson show. You remember Peter Henderson?
Oh my gosh,
days?
Peter Henderson.
Henderson's
Hotline.
He was doing the Henderson Hotline.
Is that right?
And he had George Chuvalo on. And I walked right into, while they were taping it, right into the room, the tape room, whatever you call that, right? And George Chuvalo looks at me like I broke in, and everybody's saying, "What's Gus doing?" And George Chuvalo looks at me, "Gus, what are you doing here?" And so it was that kind of a neighborhood. Everybody was there, nice. And the old Sully's gym on Ossington and College, the boxing gym, and of course Bloor Collegiate is where I went high school.
Okay.
And it was just a lot of memories there, a lot of nice memories.
Brothers and sisters?
I have both older. My sister is the eldest, and my brother. They're 8 and 7 years respect.
Wow.
Older than I am.
Us youngest, we always point out that they're the oldest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are going to laugh. They know the question I'm always asking. How was life growing up? Was it good? And mom and dad, and like, talk about that.
It was good. They gave me a lot of freedom. I mean, growing up in Greece, all the kids were just out playing. I mean, in the summertime, if there's no school, they could be out there till 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And we went to Greece. We've been so busy, we haven't been holidaying at all. But the 4 times in the last 45 years that I've been to Greece, 4 times,
wow.
My wife is always amazed at how these kids are up late at night.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they're fine. Like nobody worries about it. They just, and that's the kind of neighborhood it was. Then when we moved here, my mom and dad were so busy working all the time. Mm-hmm. That I was pretty much on my own. Like, did with kids growing up.
Did you get into any trouble, Gus?
No, I did not. Not serious trouble.
Not serious trouble. Kid trouble, yeah.
Kid trouble, yeah.
That's good.
Well, you come here as a kid and you don't know the language, and it's normal for other kids to pick on other kids that are different.
Sure.
So nothing to cry about. That's just nature of things, right? So I had to fend for myself, and I was always like a cocky little guy, I didn't take no poop from nobody, you know what I mean?
Right.
So there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But that's part of growing up.
You said mom and dad worked hard. What did they do?
Well, my dad in Greece had a little shop. He was a tinsmith, and he had his own shop, his own little business. But my uncle kept bugging him to come to Canada because it's better for kids and this and that. And he came here. We came here mostly for us. He came here mostly for the children, for a better life.
Better life, yeah.
And I'm glad that he did. I wouldn't trade Canada for anything in the world. I consider myself a Canadian. People ask me, when are you going back home? And I say, I go back home every day.
I hear you.
But
Good for you.
I'm proud of my heritage.
Sure.
And my dad came here, and the first thing they did is go to work.
Yeah.
No matter what the job was, go to work and earn a living. And he always instilled that in me. We're be proud and be grateful to this country. They let us in. You don't do anything to
mess it up.
To mess that up,
yeah.
And I try to follow in those steps.
Mm-hmm.
Not always as smoothly as he would have wanted me to, but I did. My first job was at Becker's when I was 12 years old,
wow.
12, 13 years old.
Which one, do you remember?
On College and Spadina. College and Spadina.
Wow, yeah,
Kitty Corner was the Silver Dollar saloon where was it Murray McLaughlin that's got a song?
Now you're really dating yourself more than me.
and on the other side, just down the street on Spadina, was the famous El Macambo. And that's where I went to school.
Wow.
That's where I got my first job.
In Toronto.
In Becker's, in Toronto.
Yeah.
Friday night, I would get $5 for labeling prices on things.
Is that right?
And restocking the milk and everything that came new. Just
$5.
$5 for Friday afternoon, and $10 for the whole day Saturday. Now that was cash. The guy knew the family. He was just giving me a couple of bucks. Yeah. My real job was at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all my high school years I worked at Maple Leaf Gardens.
You were snack bar or
no, just maintenance.
Sweeping floors? Excuse
me. Yep. Maintenance, sweeping floors. My dad worked there in maintenance. They worked in the night shift, cleaning the offices and other things that had. Right. But during the day, a crew of 40 of us would go in there, and we would clean like after the game, after concerts. So we would start, like a whole crew would start from the gray seats, and another crew would start at the greens back then, the blues and the reds. Then they added the greens, the golds rather. So that was my job. On Wednesday nights, there was a hockey game. We'd have to be there, and we'd work just to clean the hallway.
Okay.
For after the intermission was over. A whole bunch of us would grab a bunch of brooms, push brooms, clean everything up right to the end. It would take us like 10 minutes, and then we would go, if an usher let us, and we'd stand with the ushers and watch the rest of the game.
Is that right, eh?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, and I was,
So you said you were in high school at the time? So
I was in high school.
Like
4 years I worked at David Burrows.
You were like 14 then?
I was 15.
15, yeah.
And I was wondering if I could work at 15 when my dad took me there. And the boss, Lou Broda, was the boss, and he was a brother of Turk Broda that was called Mr. Zero back in 1962 because that was one of the cups that they won in 1962. Oh, wow. And Turk Broda was my boss's brother. So and when I said to him, am I old enough to work like at 15? He says, let me worry about that.
Yeah.
And I got my social insurance number and through them, and I went to work at Maple Leaf Gardens. Yeah. A lot of memories. I remember seeing all those guys, you named them. I saw them back in those days. They used to come into the coffee shop and grab coffee before or after practice, right? Yeah. And matter of fact, we used to joke with them when we were sweeping at the mezzanines or up at the seats. We used to holler at them and say, how badly they did the night before, and they'd shoot pucks at us trying to hit us. Yeah. They clipped one kid right here in the eye, right beside me. His name was Mike. He was wearing glasses. His glass broke. I think it was Ian Turnbull that shot. His glass broke and cut the kid here, and all the bosses were really afraid now because he may go to compensation, may become public. What are you guys doing here? But they took care of him. They said, tonight we're going to give you the white sweater. You got to wear a sweater, especially the white one at Maple Leaf Gardens. Man, you made it like you were
VIP, eh?
VIP. So this kid put on that white sweater. He was so proud on the ice because they had him on camera. He was on TV.
Oh.
You know how they clean the edges of the ice?
Yeah.
Before the Zamboni goes in?
Yeah.
He had that job. He was proud in hell to do that.
Yeah.
So he did not go to compensation.
It was an important job. Wow.
A lot of memories there.
Yeah. And that your dad worked. So, and then you said your mom worked too. What did she do?
My mom worked at Gans Brothers. Back in those days, every little stuffed animal you saw had Gans Brothers on it.
Okay.
And she worked for Gans Brothers, just sewing those little animals. That's the first job she got, and she was there till she stopped.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you grow, and then you learn all this work ethic. And did you go on to like a college, university, anything like that, or did you just keep working?
I went grade 12, and I needed there was a particular subject, and I needed 72% not to write the exam. The teacher actually said this. And so I did not write the exam. I get a call from the vice principal that you didn't write the exam, Gus. You failed. For one subject, you did not get your grade 12. I said, what? I went there to talk to the teacher and him. And we went together from his office. There was a kid that was sitting there, and he was a really good student. He was always in the front of the class. And I forget what his name was. And I said to him, she told me that I did not have to write the exam. I asked her specifically, put up my hand, I asked for the whole class. And I says, he knows. Did this happen? And the kid said, he looked at the teacher, says, yes, Miss, whatever her name was, I can't remember her name. You did say that. And the principal looks at me, he goes, of course your friend. He was not my friend. I mean, he wasn't.
Of course he didn't believe you.
We got along with the kid, but I wasn't friends with him.
Yeah.
But he says, of course your friend's going to agree with you. So I dropped the F-bomb right in his face, and I walked out. I never did get my grade 12 because of that one subject.
Wow.
Sorry to say that. I went to George Brown College.
Okay.
And picked up a Metro D course for a while. And I did that and finished it. But then a chance came to work in a clothing store. And here you are, 18, 19 years old, and you can dress looking like $1 million and work in a clothing store. And you can, after you finish at work, you can go out at night looking like $1 million, not have $10 in your pocket.
Yeah, but you can play the role.
But you can play the role. And I took that, I did that, and I worked for a couple of years for this guy named Jerry Stone. And he taught me a lot. And matter of fact, Jerry Stone is the guy that had Stone's Place on Queen Street, where the Rolling Stones went and rocked in private parties when they were in town.
Really?
Yeah, because he was friends with them.
Oh, yeah?
He was a fanatic for Rolling Stones, and then he befriended them, and they took him, whatever he asked them when they were in town, they would party at his place. And he ended up opening a bar. This is many years later.
Yeah.
He did go broke with a clothing business.
Oh.
Yeah, but he taught me a lot. He taught me about sales. He taught me about clothing. And I decided to do that on my own, open up my own place.
Really? You had a clothing shop?
And I opened up a clothing store when I was 20 years old, 21 years old. Myself and a partner, Frank, on Bloor Street, in the same neighborhood where I grew up. We went all out. This place had like hardwood from the same thing as a hardwood floor, but the canopy was all made of hardwood, bent like this with lights underneath, and all the suits were there. The suits were made from, we ordered them, specially made, the way we wanted them. Richie Rubinoff tailors, or also known as Superior tailors, and Giovanni tailors from Montreal, and Vestra Suit Company from France. We had this beautiful clothing. We had Swiss voile shirts with a full fused collar that cost like $55 for a shirt. But the problem was we were in a very, shall we say, not as affluent a neighborhood, right?
Right.
So a person would look at this Swiss voile shirt and they would go, this $5.50? I would say, no, it's $55.
Yeah.
So needless to say, inexperience.
$55 for a suit, I wish.
Inexperience.
Yeah.
And my partner decided to leave halfway through. I went down like a captain of his ship, and that was unfortunate. It was a bad experience at the time. But
a learning experience.
A learning experience. Yeah. Because the accountant the trustee that did the bankruptcy, he told me, he said to me, 99% of the people that go bankrupt do not have to go bankrupt.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And that came to mind later on with my current business.
Yeah.
Because, of course, as I've told you before, there was a period where we had some hard times with the donut business.
That's business, though, isn't it, Gus? That business, like I think, a lot of people would like to be in business for themselves, but they don't know how or what to do. But I think people, it's big. But there's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of sacrifice involved. There's a lot of learning from your failures, all that sort of stuff, right?
Unless you've done it, unless you've been in business and stayed with it for a while. A lot of people don't know the half of it.
Yeah.
They say, well, you're in business. You make all kinds of money because you're in business.
Yeah.
Well, how would they feel if they worked for 10 years without making any money?
Right.
And not only not making any money, but going into debt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened to us with the donut business. So I don't know where you'd like me to start, but
well, let's go from the clothing store, and then what was next there? Was that coffee next? Or?
Very good point. When I ended up going bankrupt, there was a debt owing to the bank.
Right.
That debt was co-signed by my dad.
Oh.
I did not want him to pay for that.
Right.
So I got the first job that was available, and somebody says to me, hey, donut bakers are making good money, so why don't you try to be a donut baker? And they pay you part check, part cash, And I said, what? Really? I said, yeah. So this opportunity came up, and I let the word out to a couple of donut shop owners, and this guy calls me. He says, I hear you're looking for, you want to bake donuts. I says to him, yeah. He says, when do you want to start? I said to him, yesterday. He goes, I like that. He says, get over here tonight. I went over there. I didn't have a clue how to make donuts. But he says, that's okay. They were pretty nice with me, They said, we'll show you how. The baker that was there, Dave Lugosi, because I remember his last name because of Bela Lugosi.
Oh, right, Bela Lugosi, right.
The Dracula, right, from the old days.
Yeah.
Dave Lugosi did not want the other baker to come back. So he made sure he helped me out.
Right.
So I would start, get things going, and then he would come, when the bosses would leave, he would come and he would help me out and show me how to do things, how to do certain things. And slowly, I made some mistakes, but slowly I picked up.
And how old are you at this point?
I'm 21, right after the clothing, 21, 22.
Okay.
22, because the clothing business was about a year. So I saw these guys making money. These are Greek guys. They own Mr. Donut. They both own two Mr. Donuts each.
Wow, Mr. Donut.
And and they're making money. And I'm saying to myself, geez, I'm a Greek. I came from Greece. I'm a Greek immigrant here in this country, and I wanted to never become that Greek that worked in a restaurant.
Yeah.
No way. There's no way I'm doing that. I'm going to be in a suit and tie. I'm going to be in clothing. I'm going to be something executive type. I don't want to do that. I'll never do that. I'll never do that. Well, never say never.
Right.
Because I saw how much money they were making. I says, man, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do a donut shop. So I went to see this guy that was in charge of the franchising of Mr. Donut.
Yeah.
And Dick Dinell, his name was. And I went right from work with my regular coat on,
Are you in Sarnia at this point?
This is
still
Toronto.
in Toronto,
yeah.
Okay.
So I went to see Dick Dinell, and I said to him, I want to start, get into the franchise and get with Mr. Donut. I'm a baker now, working here and there, and, You know, I want to know all the ins and outs. He got off his desk. He looks at me. The way I'm dressed, he looked at me up and down, and he goes to me, "You got $50,000, we talk. You don't have $50,000, we don't talk." And I looked at that, and I said, what an attitude. Mm-hmm. He brought me back to my principal.
Is that exactly what you said, Gus?
I just got up and said, "Thank you very much."
Yeah.
And I walked out. And I said, "No, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do my own."
Right.
So then...
and that was big. Like, I remember Mr. D's. Like, I spent a lot of money at Mr. D's
Mr.
when I was
Donut,
a teenager.
Mr. Donut was a great
Or
franchise.
Mr. Donut. And then the one here is Mr. Donut, I remember, was on London Road.
Right.
And then it turned into a Mr. D's.
Yeah, and there was also a Mr. Donut on Vital Street.
That's right, that's
we
right.
turned later on, we turned into Global.
Yeah.
And Timmy's went right across the street.
I know.
Place.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to it. So I came across these guys that we knew, family friends that were, but they have been very successful in the coffee business, two partners. And they had opened up a roasting house in Toronto. They were doing very well. Matter of fact, they had opened up another roasting house, a plant in Edmonton. And they were taking over the coffee shop business. Their coffee was one of the best blends that you can get.
Oh, yeah.
And matter of fact, I'm still using that same blend. They were doing so well in Nabisco, Nestle's. These big companies were after them to buy it. They're just throwing money at them till one day they did sell. But the owner, one of the owners, stayed with the company as president of that division. And we're still friends.
Wow.
He calls me at Christmas, or I'll call him, and he calls me about every 2 months. He says, "How's it going, Gus?" Or I'll call him and say, "George, what's happening?" Anyway, they wanted to invest their money in other places, and they bought the property at the Five Corners, the old Global there,
Yep.
Five Corners.
Ontario,
Well,
Wellington,
they bought it from Romuald Leger. God bless him. He passed away a month or so ago. Great guy. I'll get to him in a minute because we ended up having a partnership later on with him. So Romuald Leger did the first Global in town. Sells it to these guys. These guys hire an older couple to look after it, but the older couple wasn't really as ambitious, shall we say,
Right.
to do things. And I came along and I said to them, "I want to buy one of your donut shops in Hamilton." They said, "No, that's done. That's gone. But we have one in Sarnia." And I said, "Where the hell is Sarnia?"
Where the heck is Sarnia?
He says to me, "I'll take you for a drive."
That's hilarious.
He throws me to this nice, big, fancy Cadillac, and he brings me to Sarnia, one of the owners. And he says to me, "Well, this is a shop." I said, "Well, what's it do a week?" He says, "He does about this much a week, blah, blah, blah." So I said, "Okay, let me think about it." So I went back. I didn't have enough money. I had a little bit saved up of my own. By the way, I paid my dad's loan within a year. I took on 2 jobs.
Good for you.
One of them was under the table, the other one wasn't. And I had 2 jobs. I worked straight a whole year.
That was the goal, right?
6 days, 7
Dad's
days
not
a week,
paying for
whatever I
this.
can work. If it was 8 days, I'd work 8 days.
Yeah.
Just to get rid of that loan, because I did not want that headache for my dad.
Yeah.
And I did that within a year's time. So
Good for you.
I had some money saved up. Not enough, nowhere near. So I went to an uncle of mine, and I said, he was, by the way, he was called the professor of donuts. He was working for Country Style.
Oh, yeah.
And I walked into the kitchen one day, he was making donuts, and I said to him, "Uncle, I need some money. I need to borrow some money." He goes, "You need to borrow some money?" He kept on working, making donuts. He says, "What do you need? $50, $100? What do you need?" I said to him, "How about $10,000? He goes, "What? $10,000? I said, "Well, I want to get into my own business. I'm 25 years old now, right?
Yeah.
Have a 6-month-old,
Okay.
married to Petra.
Yeah.
And so he says, he agreed. He says, "Okay, I'll give it to you." I went back to this.
Were you surprised when he said yes? Like, you obviously went in there determined to get an answer yes,
no,
but...
Dave, not patting myself on the back, but I'm pretty confident in certain situations. I did not go there thinking that he was going to turn me down.
Yeah.
And when I asked him right away. I don't beat around the bush, say, hey, Dave, how's the wife, how's the kids? Nice weather today. And
yeah,
I talk about half an hour and they say,
let's get to
Dave,
the point.
Listen, I really want to borrow some money from you. I never did that.
Yeah.
When I went, whether it was the banks that I dealt with or people that I borrowed money, I just, boom.
It's a good way to do it.
This is. And no, he complied. So I went back to these guys, and I remember I had my cousin who was a lawyer to do most of the thing. And we were talking, and they said, no, man, you haven't even got near the money to buy this place. I didn't even have $30,000, but they were asking 110.
Wow.
They were asking more.
And back then,
1980, they backed down to 110. Said, we'll go as low as 110, but we need at least 75% of the money. Well, I got up, Dave, and I was pacing back and forth, talking to them and ranting and ranting and ranting. I said, you guys got a go-getter here, and you're missing your chance. You're going to take the chance with somebody else. Look what's happening with the people you have now. They're nice people, but they're not doing the job for you. And here you are, and I went on and on and on. They looked at each other, and they go, you know, they talked to each other a bit. They said, okay, we're going to take a chance on you. But the money that you're going to owe us, we want a percentage. They put on like 10% or whatever it was. Right. Now this is 1980. Mm-hmm. Interest rates started to go up. 82, I don't know if you remember, but in 1982 the interest rates were 22%.
Wow.
So in 1980, it wasn't that much at 1980. It was like 10% they wanted or something along those lines.
That's still crazy.
Yeah. And I accepted it. And I came to Sarnia, bought the little shop, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. Your determination is what I hear in that story, and then in that way, part of that story, you met your wife, Petra. And
I was already with her for 3 years prior to the donut shop. Yeah.
Where was she in all of this? I mean, you know, you talk about marriage. I mean, you got to have I got a fantastic wife that supports me even when she doesn't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, was she all in, or did she need some convincing?
She was all in.
Yeah.
At first she was reluctant because we're leaving a big city, mm-hmm. Friends and places we know.
Picking up your roots and moving.
And moving to
where's Sarnia?
Town in Sarnia, right?
Yeah.
And I remember us both saying the first few weeks we were here, how everything went from, you know, light speed, and we came
0 to 60, right?
Right down to slow motion.
Yeah.
And we thought that was strange. Let's stay here for 5 years, make some money, then we go back to Toronto. Well, that didn't happen, obviously. We raised 3 children in this town, and we love Sarnia, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Yeah. Nice when you have a partner like that that's all in, and it's just like, sure, there's conversation, but it's pretty much like, okay, here we go. How's it going to work? I don't know, but we're just gonna, right? And
Dave,
did she work, or was she home raising the children?
No, I was just going to say she worked harder than I did.
Oh yeah.
I would work at nights, come home and babysit. She would go in early in the morning and make them the tarts and the muffins and the pastries, which is another thing. In 1980, people don't know that. 1980, donut shops just had donuts and coffee.
Yeah.
There was nothing else.
Yeah.
I started introducing muffins, and I remember one of the competitors coming to me saying, "What are you doing? People are asking us for muffins because you're starting to do muffins." I said, "Well, you ain't seen nothing yet."
Well, I guess you better catch on.
A lot more. Just the industry is revolving, buddy. Yeah. And I'm not telling you what to do in your house, so you don't come and tell me what to do in mine.
Right. But you can watch me.
And I, you know, I was just this curtain short.
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, you know what? I'm going to send you to McCall's Cake Shops in Toronto. I signed up and bought a 3-month or whatever that period was. She stayed with my mom, and she went to McCall's Cake Shops and learned how to do tarts and brownies and day squares and all those kind of things, right? And she came back, and we introduced all those things into our shop. Our business went like from doing $3,000 a week to $6,500, $7,000 a week, all within a year, because we were making all these different things. the difference and the quality is what made it happen.
Yeah.
And promoting. Sarnia was very, very welcoming to me. Like, I remember back in those days, Peter Henderson, Andy Brand, who was the mayor, and then became, of course, became an MPP.
Yeah.
And they were very welcoming, and I said, this is great, you know. And I started promoting with these guys, with Peter Henderson, the radio station and the newspaper, and things were clicking for us. That's a good thing and a bad thing to happen at an early stage of your business.
Yeah.
And I think, and you know what I'm alluding to.
Yeah.
When you succeed that fast, you think this is easy.
Mm-hmm. Did you get comfortable?
So you get comfortable.
Yeah.
You're complacent.
Yeah. I get it.
And you say to yourself, you know what, when I'm 45, I'm going to have a chain of these places, and I'm going to be in some yacht drinking pina coladas.
Yeah. Did the ego get in the way a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
And
you had a lot of success, and you did have it rather, not to take away from any effort to it, but it grew fast.
In all honesty, I said in the beginning, I'm a bit of a cocky guy, and I still am. But ego works in two ways. Mm-hmm. You need ego because you feel proud of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if that ego overtakes you, you can be in trouble.
Yeah. Been there, done that. I get it.
And that's what happened to us later on.
Yeah.
We opened up a second store in the Eaton Center. The Eaton Center says,
I remember that.
No coffee shops and donut shops work in food courts. I said, what are you talking about? That's the only thing people can afford. You know, for $1, anybody can afford to buy something. Eventually they came to me, they had a very crappy location that was oddly shaped and a pillar in the center.
That was downtown, wasn't it?
Downtown.
Eaton Center, I called it. Yeah, I remember it.
And I said, okay, I'll take it. And the rents were atrocious. 1981, I think it opened. It was like $4,000 or $5,000 a month. It was ridiculous for Sarnia. But I agreed to it. You know, that store, they told me that it wouldn't work originally. Mm-hmm. The food court people, the mall people said, no, we don't want a donut shop here. It was #1 in sales because we had to report sales, because beyond a certain amount of sales, you start paying percentage to them.
Oh, really?
In rent, yeah.
Or they just want the
so
money.
they wanted to know your sales. I was placing first or second between myself and muffins every month. And the same thing happened in Lambton Mall. Now, how Lambton Mall opened up, I mentioned Romeo Leger earlier.
Yeah.
Passed on. Poor guy. He was absolutely great. I learned a lot of stuff from this guy. He did the store, all the carpentry for Eaton Center. So when he was finished, he took me to Williams Beef Parlor to have a coffee and Grand Marnier, as he used to say. You know, he used to love his coffee and Grand Marnier. And we sat there, we had a couple of coffees and Grand Marnier. And he says to me, hey, Gus, why don't you open up a place in Lambton Mall? I says to him, I'm 26 years old. A year ago I bought a place. A year later I opened up another one. Where do you think the money's going to come from? I said to him, you put up the money, I'll put up the know-how. I won't get any money for the first 2 years till the place gets paid. You get paid in 2 years. I promise you that. And I said to him, and then, but we set up a different company. So we set up a numbered company that I authorized for the name Global to be used, because by then I had registered, by the way, the name Global.
Yeah.
So we made a numbered company, and together we opened up Lambton Mall.
Wow.
Lambton Mall was a great success.
Yeah.
That place was, again, placing either first or second in sales every month.
Wow. But that wouldn't have been cheap to be in Lambton Mall either.
That was very expensive.
It was more than Eaton Center, wasn't it?
It was more than, it was a bigger space, mind you.
Did you have to give them a percentage at a certain
Absolutely.
point too? Yeah, wow.
Edgecombe Properties was the property manager. North American Life, actually the owner, but it was managed by Edgecombe Property. I remember because when I had to do another lease, I had to go to Toronto and talk to these guys.
At this stage of the game now, you say you're 26 and you know you're a pretty determined young fella. You're taking risks and you're cocky, but in a good way. And was there any spot at this point where you were getting ready to say, I'm not doing this? At that point. I know there were other points, but
No, well,
you're just
things were still good, right?
yeah. You had all the vinegar going, and you were just giving it
Things
on
were
fire.
going good.
Yeah,
Lambton Mill was working. Eaton Center was working. The Ontario Street was working. We ended up opening up on Exmouth and Capel. Again,
oh yeah,
with Romeo Leger, we went on and opened 6 shops.
wow,
We opened one on Exmouth and Capel, Lambton Mall, Corunna, and Petrolia. 5 shops.
Wow,
5 shops.
and Eaton Center. So that was
And Eaton Center was mine.
oh okay.
Mine.
Oh, 5 with
that's right.
Romeo. Right.
Sorry, it was Exmouth, Lambton Mall, Petrolia, and Corunna. 4 shops, and the other 2 were mine. So after the 2 years were up, I said to Ramiel, hey Ramiel, he says the 2 years are up. Our debt with the first shop is completely paid. We just have to worry about the other ones. Now I can start, making a certain wage, and then we split whatever is left. He goes, and I says to him, I wanted to start franchising. And he wasn't, he had a different idea. He wanted to keep all the stores under one company. But I always had the dream of franchising.
Right.
Because when you have somebody else with a vested interest into your shop, he's going to look after it. But if one person is looking after, half a dozen stores, that becomes pretty hard.
Yep.
So that was the disagreement we had, and we amicably separated. He kept Corunna and Petrolia, and I kept Lambton Mall and Exmouth. And I decided to franchise Exmouth, and open up Golden Mile, where I am now, and then things started going south because of the evil empire, I used to call them.
Yeah, and so then there it is, I guess, right, is that point where like everything's going well, and then like this big brick wall comes along and kind of got in the way and slowed you down, like hard.
A number of things happened. Yes, the competition, Tim Hortons, and I laud them. Like, I respect them and admire what they've done. Yeah. Because they were in the same shoes as Mr. Donut and Country Style and these other big names, but they had the foresight, and they knew exactly. And I used to tell people, I said, listen, the old days used to be the 3 martini lunches. People used to go and get drunk for lunch and go back to work. And people are realizing that's not working. Yeah. That's not going well for you, buddy. You're going to be doing that. It ain't going to work for long. So people got away from that habit. That was a habit from the 50s and 60s and carried on. In the 70s, it started changing. So it became the coffee and a donut idea. Yeah. Where can you go in, boom, boom, within 2 minutes, grab a coffee and a donut and get out for a couple of bucks, right? So I could see this happening. I could see it in almost every corner coffee shop. And people would say, you're crazy. There's already too many donut shops. Who
knew coffee and donuts would be, seriously, like I think, because I go back, like, I'm a little younger than you. I remember late 80s, early 90s, and I'm driving around the middle of the night with my buddies in their cars and everything, and it was like 45 cents a liter for gas, and it was $2 to go into Global Donuts was a feast. I mean, money changes now, and I remember when it was 24/7 back then. And it was like we talked on our CB radios, and then it would be like, okay, we're going to headquarters. We'd say we're going to headquarters. And we would go to Global for one of those sandwiches. Yeah. Coffee and a donut, but then it was sandwiches. You brought that in, Did that start around that time when you saw the evil empire coming in, or was that later?
Well, what happened is a lot of donut shops, a lot of people start clicking to that idea that there might be one in every corner. They could see that too. So as more donut shops were happening, little franchises were popping up. Mr. C's Donuts, Delight Donuts.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Robbins Donuts was bigger.
Right,
Was a big company.
Yeah.
But
they were everywhere. Like there was a point, like every street, every side street almost had a donut shop.
So Timmy's comes along, and they were smart. They said, we're going to be pushed out of the way, or they're taking us. We're going to remain where we are. We can't grow. Mm-hmm. The best way to grow is, by the way, they run a heck of a franchise. They're very strict. Yeah. You can't do this, you can't do that.
They're a system. They're the McDonald's of coffee shops.
That's what works. Yeah. That's one of the things that I did wrong when I started franchising. I wasn't, in some cases, tough enough. I didn't have enough people behind me to say, no, you can't do that. Anyway, so what they thought, there was something in business called cannibalization amongst chains. And that means that they're going to open up so many of their locations where they start eating away at their own sales, their own stores. They start losing sales because they got too many of their stores. But in the process, they sear the landscape of everybody else. Yeah. And that's exactly, that theory worked. And Timmy's knew that. So they started going everywhere, right across the street.
Well, it was put all that money into these places, and they'll sift out their own to see which ones are going to survive. But that was almost like marketing dollars to them in the sense that, but we're going to take you out at the same time, and then we'll scale ours back down after. Yeah, no, it's
and they eliminated the competition.
It's common practice.
They eliminated
corporate takeover sort of thing. Yeah,
and it worked. They eliminated Country Style, Mr. Donut, Robbins Donuts, all the small independents.
Yeah. Were you?
I'm not very religious, I don't, but, somebody up there likes me. I keep saying, praise the Lord.
Well, accept
I'm still around.
Accept that, yeah, okay, but to your credit, as long as I've known you and observed, and then based on our conversations and other people that I know that have known you, we have a lot of mutual friends, and like there was no other choice for you. It was like, this is what I'm doing. It was, well, you probably had those moments of, okay, I'm just going to quit. I can't win, whatever. But then you flipped it, and it was like, but what else am I going to do? Or like, you say the good Lord helped you, but really it's come from you and likely Petra as well. Like, you must have had discussions about, are we going to take this on?
1,000 times.
Right.
1,000 times, Dave.
Yeah.
So my complacency in saying, we're doing good, this is good enough, is one mistake. You can never get complacent. And I lost my game. And then when the competition hit, I lost my game even more. Yeah. And what happens when you keep going into debt, owing the government is banging on your door every day. I'll give you an example.
They're the evil empire, aren't they?
Well,
did I just say that? Yeah. I know what you mean.
I highly respect them. Yeah. They're my competitors.
Of course you do.
I hate their guts, but I do respect them. Can I say that?
You can. It's the show.
It's okay. No,
it's all good.
They're great. They employ so many people.
Yeah, no, I get it. But taxes and all that stuff, to be fair, right? You're up against the law.
You know what it means to have the government banging on your door almost on a daily basis.
I do.
Threatening to close you every day.
Yeah.
And the amount of money owing them keeps climbing. You can't even go bankrupt because some of the money you owe them are in trust. They're source deductions.
They get their money
employees.
No matter what.
You can't claim bankruptcy on that
against
money.
The government. I know.
So what do I do? Like
Funny how that
I'm in purgatory here. I don't know what to do. And I'm driving with a jalopy of a car. I'll tell you a nice story about that one.
And you got kids to feed still.
I got kids. My son is in university. How am I going to do this? And I'm driving home, and I got nobody. Everybody that I see around, I got to smile and be nice and everything else.
You're wearing the suit
and this is
covering it up, right?
This is the moment when I'm in the car by myself to let it out. And there was days when I would yell on the way home and bang fists on my steering wheel to say, what's
Yeah.
happening here? Why is this happening? That was almost hell, that what I was going through, what we were going through. But going back to what you said about what do you do?
What kept you going?
I have these conversations with Petra. Says, what do you want to do? She says, I don't know. So we have no choice. We got to keep going. Yeah, but we're not getting anywhere.
What's the alternative?
I would say, don't you see a light in the end of the tunnel? She would say, I don't know. And I was the same thing. I says, well, let's just keep going, see what happens. So a little story about the jalopy of a car, paint missing in the hood. This friend of mine who lives in Lakeshore, by the lake,
All right.
his backyard is a lake, invites me for a barbecue. I says to him, I can't come for long, but I'll come by for a drink because I'm busy. I've got work to do. I was working 7 days a week making donuts. Now, Dave, a lot of people don't understand. This is 7 days a week, not 10 weeks, not 10 months doing this every day making donuts. For 10 years, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
People think, oh yeah, 7 days a week for 10 years. Think about it. This guy calls me for the party. He says, you got to come by and say hello, Gus, whatever. I said, yeah, sure, I will. I went to the party, and in the front of his house were all these BMWs and Mercedes and Jaguars.
Lots of money around.
And I go and I park where I could with my jalopy. I go in the back, say hello to people I knew. Then he says to me, come out in the front. He says to me, I want to get away from these guys. He says, because I want to have a smoke. He was a smoker.
Oh, yeah.
I said, okay. So I accompanied him out there. And he lights up a cigarette. He's looking out there and he's talking to me. He stops. He goes, whose car is that? I didn't lose a beat. I'm looking at him. I go, which one?
Right. Which one? That BMW over there? Right?
He was looking at my car and he goes, whose car is that?
Yeah.
Amongst all the BMWs. And
Right.
And I said, which one?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did you ever tell them that was yours?
Yeah. That's my car. That's my car.
Yeah.
Anyway, so 10 years of that puts you in a dark place. And you have some nasty thoughts. Okay. How are you kids going to survive? Do you have insurance? Will they have enough money? Blah, blah, blah. You're thinking some terrible ideas.
Yeah.
And you end up doing terrible things. You look for escapes. And I went through all those thoughts and all those experiences.
Yeah.
I won't get into details, but it was a dark place, and the dark place is just as big as a light place. It's a reality of the yin and yang. I mean, that's just the way it is.
And then Petra's in there.
Yeah.
And she's obviously supported you in those ways too, to help bring you through that.
Always.
And then, because you were, as hardworking as she is, you're still really the front man of the band. You're the face. When we think Global Donuts, we think of you, right? And that was...
I'm the mouthpiece.
And okay, all right. Yeah, she's the lovely one.
Yes.
And
that girl.
But that shows a testament to your marriage as well. I mean, you're talking, all this hard work and everything, but what about the social side of any? Was there a social side, or was it just like I think it was Robin's Donuts said, time to make the donuts, right? Was that all it was?
That was Dunkin' Donuts, by the way.
Oh, was it? Okay, there you go. I know it was one of them. Okay, but was that all there? All there was? Was there fun? Was there retirement parties? Was there birthday parties?
Not for Petra.
Yeah,
I would get away and do some crazy things and
hang with the boys.
But she stayed with me all along. And you know what? When people go through those hard times, very few marriages survive.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed. Somebody came in. I'm blessed to have Petra.
Yeah.
I'm blessed. I feel blessed.
That's amazing. You can say that. Let's talk about the children. Like you had children, and as children go and growing up. I mean, you were working a lot. So were you weren't around as much as you would have liked to have been, or were you around and available?
I was. I regret that I wasn't as much.
Right. That's fair.
But
You were a provider, though.
I was hoping you'd ask me the question, who's your hero?
Yeah.
My kids.
Yeah.
They worked hard.
What did they do?
Through those hard times, they understood what was happening.
They did, eh?
They worked. They went through university, and they paid for most of it themselves. They had jobs.
Yeah.
Like we paid.
You helped along the way.
We paid, but they paid. They worked their way through.
Well, and you were the example, though. I mean, you brought that in from your father and your mother, who worked hard. And like you said, you earlier, you said, I'm a Canadian. I've been given an opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of it. You worked hard to make sure that your dad didn't pay off the debt that you accrued, and you obviously learned that from those family values, work ethic values, and that obviously shined in front of your children, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what, Dave, what you just said just rang. That's what brought me back. From the desperate place where you go sometimes. When you're so desperate, you go into that dark place.
Yep.
That's what brought me back, was my upbringing, my kids, and I said, I can do this. I've lost my way. I got to get my game back. And I started doing things differently. I started going back to my game, as I said in the beginning. I said, what did we do in the beginning that were successful? Yeah, we made a better product. We were innovative. We started with the muffins and the tarts and all that stuff. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to innovate, bring back those fancier donuts and good quality donuts, not cheap powdered ingredients. Yeah. The first thing I say to my suppliers, what's the best you have? Yeah. And they go, oh, it's a little bit more money. I said, I didn't ask you about the money.
Yeah, I just said,
I'll get to the money in a minute, but you tell me what it is first.
Yeah. You've done very well at picking up on the social media side of marketing.
Oh, it's powerful.
And one of the, and this one's clever. I don't know if you came up with it or Petra or somebody, but if you're going to have one, it's got to be a global. It sits true to your brand and who you are, and that story like you just told. If you're going to have one, it's got to be a global. And because it sits there and goes, because it's just a better donut. And the family, who some people have worked for you for over 20 years. There's a reason they're still there.
I had people that worked for me for 39 years, 37 years. But I'll tell you about that saying that if you're going to have one, got to be a global donut.
Yeah.
That whole thing is about the healthier part, of life. You can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't eat donuts, the sweets, stay away. So we say if you're going to have one.
That's right.
Got to be a global donut.
Yeah.
So it infers that, hey, we're not telling you to have one breakfast, lunch, and supper.
You're off the hook.
We'll never say that.
I'm so enjoying this. But I do have one very serious question that I have to ask you.
Uh-oh.
When is Gus going to retire?
Never.
I expected that answer, but like you're so in love with what you do, and it's at this point, I mean, you've got some great success that's happened to you. What would be harder to give up, the donut or the people?
The people.
Yeah.
Because I'm a people person.
No way.
Okay, you didn't know. I'm a people person.
Yeah.
I love people. So that would be hard.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, 3 years ago, I put the place up for sale. I wanted to retire.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes. We had 4 buyers. I chose one that would do a great job. The last minute, right before we were to sign the final agreement, we had everything agreed. My son, who's a lawyer in Ottawa, calls me. He says, if you haven't signed it, don't. He says, I'm coming back home. I want to take over the business.
Oh, okay.
So since then, he's been here. He's learning the business. He's there every night. He's there now.
Is he teaching you a thing?
He's
or two as
taking.
well?
I learn every day. I try to. He's. Let's not get into that.
Okay, I'll interview him next.
He's taking a huge load off my back.
Great.
To the point where I say we never went for holidays. Last year went Hawaii.
Yeah,
for
you
2
told me
weeks.
about that. Yeah,
He was
That was great.
45 years, I can count my one hand the number of times Petra and I went for holidays. So I think this is giving me the opportunity. We're going again. This year we're going to Greece.
Good for you.
So we're starting to take some time off. We go in 4 or 5 days to see the kids in Chicago, my grandkids.
Oh, yeah.
Or Toronto, my other grandkids. So he's giving me a big opportunity to do those things. So as long as I can do those things, Dave, I can stick around forever.
Right.
And my son, he's doing a great job, slowly learning the business. When he's ready and prepared to take over the whole thing, he could. But I mean, I wouldn't mind going there every day, talking to people and having coffee and just joking around.
I was going to say, just go in and have
everybody.
a coffee and a donut.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have one,
Yeah.
it's got to be a global.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know we're going to talk some more.
There's so much more.
I know.
I missed a huge part in how we turned this whole thing
Well, we
around.
didn't even know where this was going. We knew we wouldn't have trouble talking to each other. And honestly, I just
maybe I overdid it.
No, I was in awe. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and when you finally agreed to make time for me, I was like telling my wife, I'm like, oh, Gus, it's just, I'm not sure you realize the impact you've had on so many people. And
thank you, Dave.
And I know you have on me in many ways I haven't shared with you yet, but that's another time. So thank you so much.
We're gonna talk again.
We will. And thanks to all of you for watching as always. And you know what I'm going to say, click the love button, but click the share button so we can share Gus from Global's story and everybody else I have here on the show. But as always, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better week. And we'll see you next time right here on the show. Bye for now.